Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today, we are looking at the Zenith El Primero new vintage 1969 40th anniversary El Primero limited edition of 250 pieces. You can see this unique El Primero limited edition on our website, watchyouwant.com. Purchase it there if you like, and if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, you can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. This watch wears with classical proportions, but very modern attitude. This was arguably the last of the Terry Nataf watches and the first of the Jean-Frédéric Dufour watches, the passing of the torch that occurred at Zenith in 2009. In the transition of management, you saw certain elements of what was best about both regimes in a single reference. Some of the concept watch expressionism of Nataf with the vintage homage sensibility of Dufour. This watch embodies both while also recalling some of the great 1969 pioneers of the El Primero caliber. Now, the critical measurements are, of course, 50 millimeters from extremity of lug to extremity of lug, 39 millimeters across what amounts to the midsection of this cushion-shaped case, and it's a relatively slim 14.5 millimeters thick, with a great deal of that being the vintage-style domed bezel, so the watch will slide under a dress cuff surprisingly easily. Now, it wears very, very light indeed, because what you're looking at is black DLC-coated titanium, a true concept watch in every sense that extends to the very composition of the case itself. It's extremely light on the wrist, and it's paired with a very high-quality, monotone stitch, minimally bolstered alligator leather strap, and in classical vintage fashion, a PVD steel pin buckle provides low profile and easy adjustment on the fly. You can also see that there's absolutely no constraint on the strap where it abuts the lugs, so even though there is a wonderful tight tolerance that shows very little daylight between strap and case, you nevertheless can bend the strap around the tight curve of a smaller wrist. And with the lightness of that titanium case, the ergonomics of this watch are excellent. Now you can see the dial is essentially a celebration of the underlying El Primero caliber. You do have a tachometer chapter ring outboard, calibrated and solid, but then inboard of that, all of the calibrations rest under a second sapphire. The first, as I mentioned, is deliberately exaggerated in its height and its rounded profile to mimic some of the refractive index and the distortion characteristic of a vintage plexiglass, as you might have seen on the 1969 watches that this references. But inboard, you have a sapphire on which the subdials as well as all calibrations and applied hour indices rest. Beneath, you can see the bottom plate, as it's known, of the El Primero caliber 469, a tribute caliber designed expressly for a tribute watch. This was part of the Terry Nataf sensibility. He wanted to bring the machine from the inside out, with innovations like concept watches featuring sapphire dial underlays, open escapements on the dial. He did bring the inside of the watch out, and that's been one of his enduring legacies at the modern Zenith, a successful concept that continues to this day, but rarely has it been pursued to the extreme as it was in this one of 250 pieces limited edition. Now you can see the vintage style square caliber, or I should say square section, seconds hand ticking away, and there is a date at 4:30 in traditional El Primero fashion. It does feature a quick set date function, and on the case back you can see the 40th anniversary dedication on top of the sapphire case back, and beneath a blackened winding mass atop that caliber 469 with a 52-hour power reserve, 31 joules, and that traditional 5 hertz or 36,000 vibration per hour double time Zenith heartbeat. This is a classic Zenith El Primero execution with a few wrinkles to remind you that you are looking at a special watch indeed. This watch has a character that spans generations, somehow managing to extract the best of each. 1969 in these very first El Primero cushion case forms, the classic tri-compact dial layout. Unlike many of the modern revivals of these older watches, you can see that the subdials are not entirely clipped. Each one does retain its full calibration scale, so you can read constant seconds, chronograph minutes, and chronograph hours. That has not been universal in the modern Zenith El Primero executions, but you have it here. In the skeletonized, in fact I should say entirely open-worked dial, you have the best of the Terry Nataf era, the machine brought from the inside out so you can appreciate your El Primero without removing it from the wrist. And finally, in the historic homage, you have the best of the current regime at Zenith. Respect for the past, albeit rendered in a modern paradigm. You can see this unique historic recreation, a modern classic in its own right, on our website, watchyouwant.com.